This is World News Program coming to you live from Algiers with me, Mariam Zian. The headlines. The Zionist killing machine continues to claim more lives in the Gaza Strip, with one person killed by occupation forces in Al Buraish camp in central Gaza. The government media office reports a total of 1,820 victims killed, wounded, and detained since the ceasefire came into force, and Qatar says Israel is obstructing the transition to the second phase of the agreement. In Syria, a new agreement between the government and the SDF on the future of Hasaka and integration mechanisms includes a 4-day truce that was reached. The Syrian army announced its entry into Al-Shaddadi city and the arrest of 90 Daesh members who escaped from prison, while the SDF announced having withdrawn from the Al-Hul camp. On the Sahrawi issue, President Ghali stressed the need to confront the conspiracies and schemes of the Moroccan occupation. The Polisario Front said resolving the Sahrawi issue depends on respecting Sahrawi people's will, while Spanish municipalities adopted a proposal condemning human rights violations in Western Sahara. Regarding Greenland, US President Donald Trump announced a meeting with various parties at Davos to discuss the matter. Denmark said Europe would have no choice but to respond if a trade war breaks out, and the European Commission pledged a firm response to Trump's threats. Welcome back to the details of your program. First, a Palestinian was martyred and 7 others injured over the past 24 hours, while a number of victims remain under the rubble and in the streets as ambulance and rescue crews are unable to reach them, according to a statement by the Gaza's Ministry of Health. The same source said in a statement on Tuesday that the death toll from the genocide in the Gaza Strip has risen to 71,551 martyrs, 171,372 wounded since the start of the aggression on October 7, 2023. It added that the total number of martyrs since the ceasefire took effect on October 11 has reached 466 martyrs and 1,294 wounded, while 713 bodies have been recovered. The Palestinian infant was martyred on Tuesday as a result of extreme cold in Gaza City after the occupation destroyed and demolished most of homes across the Gaza Strip. Media outlets citing medical sources reported that 7-month-old Shata Abu Sharad died in Gaza City due to the severe weather system hitting the Strip amid a shortage of aid and a lack of heating caused by the occupation's closure of crossings and its prevention of aid entry. And the government media office in Gaza announced that the Zionist entity continues to violate the ceasefire agreement since it came into force on October 10 of last year. In a statement issued Tuesday, the office revealed that more than 1,000 violations were committed by the Zionist entity over 100 days since the decision took effect, resulting in nearly 2,000 martyrs, wounded, and detainees. It held the Zionist entity fully responsible for the ongoing deterioration of the humanitarian situation in the Gaza Strip.
The continuation of these violations and breaches constitutes a serious circumvention of the ceasefire agreement and an attempt to impose a humanitarian equation based on subjugation, starvation, and blackmail. We hold the Israeli occupation fully responsible for the ongoing deterioration of the humanitarian situation, as well as for the lives lost and the properties destroyed during a period that is supposed to witness a complete and sustainable ceasefire. We also call on President Trump, the sponsors of the agreement, the mediators and guarantors, the international community, and the United Nations to bear their legal and moral responsibilities.
Qatari Foreign Ministry spokesman Majid al-Ansari said the occupation has not taken a decision to move to the second phase and continues to dispute the handover of bodies despite having received all of them except one. Speaking at a press conference in Doha on Tuesday, al-Ansari pointed to the continuation of the catastrophic humanitarian situation in Gaza, stressing that it is man-made due to its direct link to political decisions and field measures.
There are commitments on the Israeli side that must be fulfilled, including steps such as withdrawal and others. The timing of these steps naturally falls within the collective implementation framework. We're not saying that specific deadlines have been ignored, but we emphasize the necessity of exerting pressure on all parties, including the Israeli side, to comply with the agreement's provisions and to implement the second phase directly. As we mentioned, this is currently being coordinated through councils aimed at putting an end to the excuses used to delay entering the second phase. Today, of course, unilateral Israeli measures such as attacks on UNRWA violations of ceasefire and preventing the administrative committee from entering the Gaza Strip are obstacles. However, we're working with our partners in mediation to ensure real pressure is applied to start implementing these measures as outlined in President Trump's plan and the 20 steps.
World leaders are meeting in Davos, where U.S. President Donald Trump's special envoy says Washington's ceasefire plan for Gaza has strong international support. Let's have a listen.
I think we have overwhelming support, overwhelming. Everybody believes that this is the pathway to bringing people together and being egalitarian about the decisions. The president wants to save lives, and this is going to be a very important platform.
Zionist occupation forces on Tuesday morning stormed the compound of the United Nations Relief and Works Agency for Palestine refugees UNRWA in the Sheikh Jarrah neighborhood of occupied Al-Quds and began demolishing structures inside in a clear challenge to the United Nations. Local Palestinian sources reported that the demolition was carried out under the supervision of the extremist Zionist Itamar Ben-Gvir, and UNRWA condemned what it described as an unprecedented attack on the agency, stating that the occupation forces stormed the compound shortly after 7 a.m. local time and began demolishing the facilities in a serious violation of international law and the privileges and immunities enjoyed by the United Nations. And the Syrian presidency confirmed that a joint agreement has been reached between the government and the SDF regarding several issues related to the future of Hasaka governorate in northeastern Syria. In a statement on Tuesday, the Syrian presidency explained that the agreement grants the so-called SDF 4 days for consultations to develop a detailed plan for practical integration of the areas, emphasizing that Syrian forces will not enter the centers of Hasaka and Kimashli if the agreement is implemented.
It was agreed to grant the Syrian Democratic Forces a period of 4 days for consultations to develop a detailed plan for the practical integration of the areas. In the event of agreement, Syrian forces will not enter the centers of the cities of Hasaka and Kamishli and will remain on their outskirts. It was also confirmed that Syrian military forces will not enter Kurdish villages and that the armed forces will not deploy in those villages except for local security forces drawn from the region's inhabitants in accordance with the agreement. The two parties also agreed to integrate all military and security forces of the SDF within the Ministers of Defense and Interior, while discussions continue on the detailed integration mechanism. Civilian institutions will also be integrated within the structure of the Syrian government.
The Syrian Arab News Agency reported that Syrian army forces entered Shaddadi south of Hasaka after the SDF released Daesh members from the local prison. Army units secured the prison and its surroundings and swept the city and nearby areas. Syrian media noted that the army reached the Panorama Junction and the southern entrance to Hasaka, while official television announced full control of Shaddadi, including the prison and the launch of wide security operations targeting fleeing Daesh members. Media sources reveal that the so-called Syrian Democratic Forces SDF announced their withdrawal from Al-Hol camp located on the southern outskirts of Al-Hol city and Hasaka governorate. Reuters, citing informed sources on Tuesday, reported that the US-led coalition against Daesh is negotiating to hand over the camp to Syrian authorities, where 3 civilians linked to the terrorist organization are being held following the SDF's announcement of its forced withdrawal. Lebanese President Joseph Aoun stated that despite the occupation's failure to commit a ceasefire over Beirut, not a single bullet has been fired from Lebanese territory during his one-year presidency. In remarks to the press on Tuesday, Aoun said that for over 10 months, the Lebanese army and armed forces have controlled southern Litani, undertaking extensive operations to clear large areas of all illegal weapons, regardless of type or affiliation. In other matters, Sahrawi President and Secretary General of the Polisario Front, Ibrahim Ghali, emphasized the need to confront the enemy conspiracies and schemes, assert the will of the Sahrawi people, and overcome this difficult situation by uniting ranks, maintaining national unity, adhering to the principles of the Popular Front, and upholding willpower and faith in victory. During his supervision of an extended meeting of the Front and State leaderships to discuss the 2026 government program recently approved by the Sahrawi National Council, Ghali affirmed that the dignity and freedom of the Sahrawi people remain the guiding principle until victory is achieved.
This program comes at a sensitive time for the Sahrawi cause, a moment that requires cooperation and integration in order to ensure its success. It is necessary to confront the conspiracies and schemes of enemies, to rise to the challenge of imposing the will of the Sahrawi people, and to overcome the difficult phase by closing ranks, adhering to national unity, upholding the principles of the Popular Front, and relying on the strength of will and faith in victory. The dignity and freedom of the Sahrawi people are the position on which we stand until victory is achieved.
The Sahrawi Prime Minister and member of the National Secretariat, Bashiraya Hamoudi Bayoun, affirmed that the Western Sahara conflict cannot be resolved without the approval of the Sahrawi people and respect for their free will in determining their own destiny. Hamoudi Bayoun told reporters on Tuesday that UN Security Council Resolution 2797-2025 does not limit a political solution to the so-called autonomy plan, but explicitly states that any resolution of the Sahrawi issue must guarantee the Sahrawi people's right to self-determination. This means that no solution can be reached without the direct consent of the Sahrawi people.
The zero draft, which sought to bypass the Sahrawi people's legitimate rights, was rejected thanks to their resilience and the support of their allies. Through marches and demonstrations, the Sahrawi people showed the world they will not give up their rights and will continue their struggle at any cost. The Polisario Front reaffirmed its readiness to engage constructively with the UN-led peace process in Western Sahara, while refusing to participate in any political process that seeks to legitimize Morocco's illegal occupation or deny the Sahrawi people their inalienable right to self-determination and sovereignty.
Spanish municipalities approved the proposal condemning serious human rights violations in the occupied Western Sahara, emphasizing solidarity with the Sahrawi people and the defense of international legitimacy in the occupied territory. According to Spanish media reports, the La Frontera Municipal Council in the Canary Islands unanimously endorsed the proposal, with the mayor stressing that Morocco has no sovereignty over the region.
The Council commits to defending human rights worldwide, with a focus on occupied Western Sahara due to its proximity and historical ties to the Canary Islands. La Frontera rejects Morocco's attempt to impose its authority in Western Sahara, including its claims over the territory's maritime domain. The Council emphasizes that Morocco has no sovereignty over the region and calls for renewed support and solidarity with the Sahrawi people's right to self-determination and independence. Human rights violations in Western Sahara cannot be ignored.
Algeria's Minister Delegate to the Minister of Defense and Chief of Staff of the Army, General Saïd Chengriha, continued his visit to the various pavilions of the 2026 Team Dex International Exhibition in Doha, Qatar. According to a statement from the Algerian Ministry of Defense on Tuesday, during the third day of his official visit, General Saïd Chengriha closely examined the latest military products in naval defense industries. He received detailed briefings on the displayed equipment and the most recent technological advances in maritime systems. The Army General and his accompanying delegation also reviewed the latest solutions in unmanned aerial vehicles, command and control systems, cybersecurity weapons, and armored vehicles. In addition, General Saïd Chengriha held talks with officials and representatives of international industrial institutions, focusing on exchanging expertise and exploring potential partnerships, particularly in manufacturing, maintenance, and technology transfer to enhance operational readiness and modernize equipment according to international standards. During his visit, General Saïd Chengriha was received by Qatar's Deputy Prime Minister and Minister of State for Defense Affairs, Sheikh Saoud bin Abdurrahman Al Thani, in a private meeting. Both sides praised the high level of bilateral military cooperation, reflecting the strong trust and understanding that characterize Algeria-Qatar relations across multiple levels. And Algeria reaffirmed its commitment to dialogue, diplomacy, and removing obstacles to progress in disarmament. At the 2026 Disarmament Conference in Geneva, Ambassador Rachid Belhan, Algeria's permanent representative to the UN office and international organizations in Switzerland, highlighted the country's support for disarmament initiatives, including during its 2024-2025 UN Security Council term. He emphasized the need to consider geopolitical risks and rapid technological developments, stressing that the international legal framework for disarmament should be strengthened with binding mechanisms to prevent potential consequences and safeguard global peace and security. Algeria and Greece signed multiple agreements and memoranda of understanding in the fields of diplomatic training, sports, communications, national archives, and aviation services, according to a statement from the Algerian Ministry of Foreign Affairs. The session of the Third Algerian-Greek Joint Committee in Athens was co-chaired by Algeria's Secretary of State for the National Community Abroad, Sofiane Chayeb, and Greece's Deputy Minister of Foreign Affairs for Economic Diplomacy and Promotion, Harry Theouharis. The session concluded with the signing of several agreements, and the sides also discussed current international and regional issues, their partnership with the European Union, and multilateral cooperation and coordination. Algeria's phosphate mines company, Somifos, signed a memorandum of understanding with Indonesia's Pupuk company to explore cooperation in phosphate supply, investment, and processing, the Algerian Ministry of Hydrocarbons and Mines reported. The signing in Algiers was attended by Algeria's Minister of State for Hydrocarbons and Mines, Mohamed Arqab, Indonesia's Deputy Minister of Agriculture, Sudaryono, and Algeria's Secretary of State for Hydrocarbons and Mines, Karima Bekir Tafar.
Today we are witnessing the signing ceremony of a memorandum of understanding between the national company Somifos, affiliated with the Sonaram Group, and the Indonesian company Pupuk. This memorandum aims to develop studies in advanced phosphate processing and transformation in Algeria.
In the same context, Deputy Minister Sudaryono highlighted Indonesia's strong interest in Algeria's mining potential and the opportunities offered by collaboration with the Somifos and the Sonaram Group, expressing the country's readiness to advance practical and sustainable partnership projects in phosphate and fertilizer production. Let's have a listen.
Minister Muhammad Arqab that Indonesia not only importing raw material. Starting from now, we are negotiating any possibility cooperation between Indonesia and Algeria, so then we can develop, we can secure the raw material itself and also develop the industry, so then we can have an access to semi-final product. On behalf of the government of Indonesia, I would like to express the gratitude, to express thanks to Algerian government for receiving us, so then I can have a courtesy call today, and we hope that the cooperation can be done as soon as possible, and it is a mutual cooperation to bring the fruitful result, fruitful impact for our economy, both Indonesia and also Algeria, and I hope that this cooperation can go very well, process very well, and we can have result as soon as possible.
Algeria's Minister of State, Minister of Hydrocarbons and Mines, Mohamed Arqab, is participating on behalf of President Abdelmajid Tebboune in the 2026 Simika Chad Mining, Quarries and Hydrocarbons exhibition in N'Djamena. Algeria has attended the event as guest of honor, sharing its expertise, experience and vision in developing extractive industries. The participation aims to strengthen African cooperation and South-South collaboration while supporting efforts to make the mining sector a strategic driver of sustainable economic and social development across the continent. In Sudan, the army announced that it had successfully thwarted all attempts by the Rapid Support Forces to advance along the combat axis in western Kordofan. In statements to All24 News on Tuesday, the spokesperson for the Joint Force of Armed Resistance Movements cooperating with the army, Ali Wakil Abuja, confirmed that the Sudanese army conducted military operations described as successful, inflicting heavy losses in personnel and equipment on the Rapid Support Forces in Kordofan.
Our joint forces, the army, the security forces, and the mobilized troops, with their high combat readiness, managed to break the waves of attacks in the Mehwar al-Kharb area and thwart attempts to advance towards Al-Ulu. This forced the militias to flee to the outskirts of the Chadian border, leaving behind their remnants, including bodies and quantities of military equipment. In the western Mehwar area, and on the Kordofan front, in the ongoing operations, our forces managed to defeat the Rapid Support Forces militia, who targeted citizens of Al-Abriya with killing and looting in North and South Kordofan. These decisive battles resulted in heavy losses of life and military equipment.
Severe flooding in Mozambique on Monday affected more than 72,000 homes and caused widespread damage to road, bridges, and healthcare centers, according to authorities. Rachel Fowler, Director of Programs and Operations of the International Federation of the Red Cross and Red Crescent Societies, said the floods forced over 620,000 people to flee their homes. U.S. President Donald Trump announced on Tuesday that he will hold a meeting on Greenland with various parties on the sidelines of the World Economic Forum in Davos. Trump, in a post on his Truth Social platform, said he approved the meeting for what he called various parties and emphasized that Greenland is vital for national and global security, insisting there can be no retreat on the matter. Donald Trump also stated that the United States will discuss the potential acquisition of Greenland during the forum this week, claiming that Denmark cannot adequately protect the island. Speaking to reporters in Florida late Monday, Trump stressed the necessity for the U.S. to secure the island, describing it as strategically important. The Danish presidency stated that Europe would have no choice to respond if a trade war erupted following Trump's threats to impose tariffs on countries opposing his plans to acquire Greenland. Danish Prime Minister Mette Frederiksen told Parliament on Tuesday that the European Union does not seek conflict but would be forced to take defensive action in the event of a trade war. U.S. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent warned European countries on Monday against imposing counter-tariffs in response to Trump's Greenland's acquisition threats. Speaking on the first day of the Davos Forum, Bessent described such measures as unwise, noting that Trump views Greenland as strategically important and emphasizing that the U.S. will not delegate the security of the Western Hemisphere to any other party. The European Commission said it will respond firmly to repeated threats by Trump to annex Greenland and his hints at increasing tariffs on European countries. Commission President Ursula von der Leyen stated on Davos's platform on Tuesday that the EU considers the American people not just an ally, but also a friend, warning that escalating tensions will only serve to deter opponents and set limits. We have reached the end of our program for tonight. Thank you for watching and see you tomorrow.